Jonathan Overstreet, and you're listening to oh God, let's try it again. Oh, hi, this is Jonathan Overstreet. You're listening to a podcast called Potholes to Paved Roads. So, I'm coming straight out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, by way of a little town called Mangum, Louisiana. That's where I grew up at. And you're probably wondering what in the world is potholes to paved roads supposed to mean, but I was kind of hoping that the name would be pretty self-explanatory to a certain extent. So here's what it's about. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about, it's going to be about self-help, conflict resolution, addiction, having an autistic child, being married, having 3 children. It's going to be about all kinds of stuff. Maybe a little bit of spiritual stuff. But let me preface this by saying I don't want this to necessarily be a Christian podcast. I hope I doesn't really offend my Christian brothers and sisters, but what I mean is I don't want it to necessarily be a Christian podcast, but I'd like it to be a podcast who has a host who happens to be a Christian. I mean, we're going to talk about that stuff sometimes, but I mean, I don't want to run everybody off that it doesn't believe in all that kind of stuff, and anyway. But one of my favorite things to talk about too, that we're going to talk about some, is getting out of debt. I absolutely love talking finances. I'm in the Dave Ramsey program, and I'm in baby step number 2, which is paying off debt. Baby step number 1 is $1,000 in an emergency fund. I know, $1,000 doesn't sound like much, but that's baby step 1. There are reasons for that amount of money. Baby step 2 is what I'm on, which is paying off debt. And there's 7 baby steps. I'm not going to go into all of them, but anyway, this is definitely a broad topic podcast. It's about a lot of different things. And the thing is, I don't know if I necessarily want to just pick one thing and be really good at it. I would just rather be partially good at several things. So, story of my life. But anyway, I am somewhat attention deficit, so I definitely would have it no other way. This is going to be about a broad. It's going to be a pretty broad podcast. And anyway, a little bit about me. I'm from a little town originally. I grew up in a little town called Mangum, Louisiana. My graduating class had 53 students. So imagine growing up in a place like that and moving to a place like Tulsa that's like, crap, I can't remember for sure. I want to say Tulsa's around 400-something thousand people. Actually, I could be off on that a little bit. It might be more like 200-something thousand. I can't remember. But now being in Tulsa since 2005, I pretty much consider myself a Tulsan. I mean, I love this place. Some of the people that live here that I've met that don't like this place are from here. And there's just something about where you're from, you just don't like it. I never really have understood that. But I like the little town I was from in Louisiana. But anyway, if you don't like Tulsa or you don't like where you're from, just move out and you might see that there's some really good things about where you live. And you take it for granted. But I graduated high school in 2000, and I literally had 53 students that graduated with me. I'm talking a little bitty school. I want to say my brother, when he graduated in 2006, I think. He graduated from a town called Bixby, Oklahoma, and I think he had 1,200 kids in his class. I mean, it was huge. I mean, this was culture shock for us. But I am married. I got a beautiful wife that we've been married for 17 years this year, and I have 3 awesome kids. My middle child is autistic, which is kind of weird. That doesn't really run in our family, yet my middle child is autistic. My brother's middle child is also autistic. He's a little bit younger than me, and I'm just I don't know where all the autism came from with our kids, but my autistic kid and his autistic kid are actually way different too. Mine is high functioning, talks, walks. If you hung around him a little bit, you might think he's pretty much normal, but once you hear him talk, you can hear the delay, and you can hear that he's behind mentally. But my brother's son is more along the lines of, I don't believe he speaks very much at all. He functions fine. I mean, he can do pretty much anything a normal kid can do. It's just he doesn't speak. So that makes his life and my life quite a bit different. So I do work for the United States Postal Service. I've been a postal carrier since 2013. I know some of you guys out there have been carrying for 30 years. I've only been carrying about 7. But I absolutely love my job. I love interacting with people. My job is about 4 hours of walking and a couple hours. 4 hours of walking and a couple hours of mounted / cluster boxes and stuff like that. But it's a great route and I love it. But I also work in the evening time for Domino's Pizza, and I'm a delivery driver for them. Like I said, man, we're getting out of debt. We've paid off probably 15 things in the last year, since June of last year. I mean, we've been getting after it. We got sued a few years ago, and that kind of woke us up. And me and my wife together make too much money to be broke all the time. And my wife works for Walmart as a personal shopper. And so that's a little bit about me. Like I said, I am a Christian, but I promise not to beat you over the head with my beliefs and what I believe is right and what I believe the Bible says. I'm not here to beat you over the head with that, and I'm not here to preach to you. There might be some occasions where I might talk about that a little bit, but I don't know how to explain it, but I don't really feel like that's exactly my focus with this. I mean, I don't want to sound sacrilegious, don't get me wrong, but I'm looking for a wider audience of people that I can just speak to. I don't know. Nobody might listen to this. This might be something that nobody's interested in, but it's just a little bit from me and a little bit from my life and the things I go through. Like I said earlier, I don't want it to necessarily be a Christian podcast, but I just want it to be a podcast that's hosted by a guy who happens to be a Christian. So, but let me say this. I do have an agenda. If you're listening to a podcast that doesn't have an agenda, or they say they don't have an agenda, they might say that, but I'm not going to say they're lying, but they might not understand exactly what the word agenda means. So I do have an agenda. And one of the definitions of agenda is the underlying intentions or motives of a particular person or group. Keyword here is underline. I want my motives to be right up front. My reason for doing this is very simple. 2 words. Help people. That's all I want to do with this, is to help people. Because I think there's way too many podcasts out there. There's way too many negative voices, and I do not want to be one of those. I want to help people. So that's a little bit of what this is about and why I'm even doing this. And I don't know, the sound quality might be crap, but come on, people. When you first start something, it's not always the greatest, okay? And there might be a little bit of comedy in this sometimes. You might laugh at me. You might think I'm a weirdo or a geek, and you know what? I don't care. I've been called everything in the book. If I told you what my nickname was in high school, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to go into that. but definitely, I'm a nerd, and I'm happy with it. I'm confident in myself. I don't mind being a nerd. I've been a nerd for a long time, and I don't care. And I'm the type of person, I really don't too much care what people think of me. And I want to be a good witness to people and be friendly to people, but anyway. But that's a little bit about what this podcast is about. So, the title, Potholes to Paved Roads. Alright, so I do have a confession to make. And the confession is this. If you hear stuff in the background, it's not because I don't care about your listening or that I'm multitasking or whatnot, but I will be honest, I am working for Domino's Pizza right at this very moment. And I'm driving around, so you may hear car noises in the background some, but it's kind of ironic. I didn't really think of that when I came up with that name, and I do need to give credit to my wife. She came up with that name, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought Potholes to Pave Roads is a great name. It's kind of ironic that I'm going to be driving around while I'm doing this. So, but I am being safe. I'm not reading off anything. I do have a little notebook. I might glance at it occasionally. But anyway, potholes. Let's first talk about potholes just for a second. So Archimedes said that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But I got to tell you, you drive straight on any road, and I do mean any road in Tulsa, and you will need a front end alignment eventually. I mean, I'm talking potholes everywhere, people. I thought Arkansas had some bad roads. No offense to Arkansas. But Tulsa is, well, it's just highly traveled. It's just, there's a lot of people on the roads here. And it's very highly traveled. It's I know it's probably not as busy as some of the other places like Dallas or maybe Austin, Texas, some of these other places, but still, it's pretty busy. It's no slouch for sure. But the Tulsa population in 2018, I can't believe I actually did write this down. Shocker. Oh man, I was close. Okay, so the Tulsa population in 2018 was 400,669 people. That's almost 600 times the size of where I grew up. Golly, that's crazy to think about. It's crazy to say because it's just nuts, but it's true. The town I grew up in was about 600 times smaller than Tulsa, Oklahoma. So, but through this podcast, we're going to get to paved roads eventually, but through this podcast, there's 2 points that I'm wanting to talk about. Number one is where you are in your life, and number two is where you want to be in your life. It's not a straight line. It's not. Conflict in life is like potholes in the road. Just when you think things are going fine, boom, you hit another hole in the road. So conflict resolution is a lot of what we're going to talk about. And a lot of the reasons for me doing this are for conflict resolution. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to work with that's one of the most difficult things is when working with my autistic son. Me and my wife together as a team, this is the toughest part of what we do, is trying to teach our kid conflict resolution. Because when he gets angry and upset, I mean, I thought I got mad when I was a kid sometimes. Oh man, this dude is something else, man. It's tough. And I do know my brother actually deals with some of the same issues with his son, who's autistic. He also has 3 kids, about the same age gap as mine and my wife's, and same as me, a middle child who's autistic. So, but that's the reason for the podcast. That's the reason I want to do this, and that's the reason. And this is also, guys, this is a way for me to vent, because there are times in a special need parent's life, a parent to special needs kid's life, where there are some times where we need to talk to somebody. And don't get me wrong, I talk to my wife, she talks to me. Things are good. We have pretty good communication. And the funny thing is, this is coming from a man who men typically are not very good with communication. So, oh gosh, I might be completely in the dark here. But I do believe my wife loves me, and I do believe that we have a great relationship, and we're almost out of debt. And I can't tell you guys how much freedom that you feel. We've got one thing left to pay off besides our house. And guys, we will be debt free. And with that comes a lot of freedom. So I feel like me and my wife have a great relationship. But there's sometimes that I want to say things. And I don't want to have to keep it inside until I can talk to my wife, or until I can talk to my pastor, or until I can talk to a counselor. This is my way of venting a little bit, guys. Because being a parent to autistic children is not easy. It is not easy, guys. I think next time we'll talk a little bit about paved roads, what I'm hoping to get out of that, and what I'm the point I'm trying to make. But guys, I just want to say thank you for listening. I know this might be a little bit all over the place, but if you're attention deficit, I think this is really going to hit the spot for you, which it seems like a lot of us are. So, but I just want to say thank you guys for listening. And until next time, I'm Jonathan Overstreet, and this is Potholes to Pave Roads.